Hey loves, and welcome to the Peace and Power podcast. My name is Kiosha. I use biblical principles to help women with their personal finances. This video is the first of a 5-part series on how to stabilize financially after a divorce. Going through a divorce is a truly traumatizing time. There's a lot going on mentally, emotionally, and spiritually within your life that can really make it difficult for you to focus on your finances. And that's okay. We're going to focus on prioritizing our healing and prioritizing our basic needs. Because from a financial standpoint, we don't want to try to do too much while we're healing from the trauma of divorce. We want to kind of get some of that healing under our belt first so we can make sure that we're making healthy financial decisions. So I want to read to you from the book of Acts. It's Acts chapter 3. I'm going to read verses 6 through 8, but really the entire story that's in verses 1 through 10 is a good one. And basically it's about a man who was born lame, so he could not walk. And his friends would bring him outside the temple and just sit him there so that he could beg for money. And on this particular day, Peter and John were walking into the temple, and Peter said, this is verse 6, "Silver and gold I do not have, but what I do have I give to you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk." And he took him by the right hand and lifted him up, and immediately his feet and ankle bones received strength. So he, leaping up, stood and walked and entered the temple with them, walking, leaping, and praising God. And so what I picked up from that Bible verse was that this was a person who needed financial help, right? He was disabled. He could not earn any income by working on his own because he was not able to walk. We're not talking about a time where he could work from home or where he could get a job doing things on the internet. No, he was not physically able to get around. Therefore, he was not able to earn money. And so he had a legitimate need for financial help. But he also had a need for healing. And when Peter said to him, "Silver and gold I do not have," he could have said, "I don't have any money, so, I'm sorry, I can't help you," and just walked on into the temple and went on about his business. But I believe that what Peter saw was a greater need, a need for healing for this man. And that was something that he was able to give him through Jesus. And so I think that it's important to note just how gratefully this man received that healing, because even still, he didn't get the money that he asked for, and yet he was still extremely grateful. It says that he leaped and rejoiced and praised God, right? And so getting the healing was just as important, if not more important for him than actually getting the money. Because if I think it all the way through, now this man has the physical capacity to be able to go out and earn money. Now that his body is healed, he can actually set himself up for being a productive person who's able to gain income on his own. And so I think it's just very important that we understand the power of healing, right? And understanding that from an emotional and mental standpoint, there's a lot that's going to go into our healing process that is actually going to help us with our finances. And so as we think about the healing part of our journey, we want to also think about what are the things that we need to be doing, right? What are the things that we need to be tapping into that are going to help us with our financial, with our healing journey, as we think also about our personal finances. And some of those things are going to include, one, getting therapy, right? Getting into some type of counseling where you one-on-one are talking with a professional about what is going on in your mind and in your heart and how you're really processing through the divorce, and that person being able to speak into you and help you process everything in a healthy way, right? The, the second thing that we want to be able to consider is going to be biblical community, right? And so that could take many forms. It could be pastoral care through your local church. It could be joining a small group or support group that's specifically related to divorce. A really good one that I love and that I did when I was going through my process is called Divorce Care, an amazing group. And I even help lead that group now because I'm just so adamant about helping people heal after divorce. And then relationships. So, what are your friendships like? Are you friends with people who you can lean on, who can hold you accountable, who can talk you through things? And I personally believe that, at least in the beginning stages of your divorce, those need to be same sex relationships. So, women connecting with other women, men connecting with other men. And that's just because you don't want to muddy the waters connecting with somebody of the opposite sex while you're so tender and so vulnerable. You really want to focus on having friendships and focusing energy into friendships with people of the same sex. Um, and so, again, that's not to say you can't be friends with somebody of the opposite sex, but you really want to focus energy into friends of the same sex who are like minded, who are going to be able to give you solid advice and encouragement and help hold you accountable throughout this process. Um, the other relationship, the other relationship that you really need to focus on is your relationship with God, right? And I mean in a very intentional one on one with the Lord, having intimacy with God on a regular basis. And so that's your prayer time, right? That's doing your devotionals. That's, just taking a walk and talking to the Lord on your walk. That's quiet time, just listening to what the Lord may have to say to you, journaling, even, right? So these are some ways that you can really just be connecting with God throughout this journey because ultimately he's the one who is going to heal you as you go through everything that you're going through. And the final thing I want to say about healing, and this will be hard for some of us to hear, but it is so true and so important. It is vital actually in your healing, and that is forgiveness. That is forgiveness, and I'm talking about forgiveness of your former spouse, forgiveness of other people in your life who have contributed to hurting you in various ways, not only your former spouse, but because we're talking about divorce, that definitely needs to be a part of it. And getting with God about um, who do I need to forgive? What are things that I'm still holding on to that I need to let go of? Because that forgiveness piece, if you are walking in unforgiveness, you could really be holding on to a lot of things that will eventually hold you back. Um, there's a common saying about forgiveness. It's something along the lines of when you don't forgive somebody, it's like you drinking poison but expecting the other person to die, right? Unforgiveness poisons you, right? And so, in order to truly move forward in your healing, you're going to have to come to a place where you can forgive the people who hurt you, and particularly your former spouse. All right. So, those are just a few things to consider under the realm of prioritizing your healing. Now, I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about prioritizing your basic needs. So, from a financial standpoint, obviously, it's not like because you're going through a divorce you don't have any responsibility, right? Wouldn't that be great if the world said, oh, okay, this person's going through a divorce, they don't have to pay rent, they don't have to do, they don't have to use money for anything. No, unfortunately, the sad reality is you still gonna have to show up financially and take care of the responsibilities of your life. The financial aspects of your life don't stop just because you're going through a divorce. But I do want to shed some light on ways that you can simplify your personal finances so that they're not overwhelming you while you're trying to navigate the healing process, right? And so for this, I just have a few basic things for you to think about. One, don't make any major purchases during this time. Honestly, if it's like more than $300, reconsider it. Put it on the back burner. Take some time. Maybe get with an accountability partner or a close friend who is going to be able to give you some real heartfelt insight about making this purchase, and just hold off on it. Okay, if you can. If it's not an immediate actual need, if it's not something that you really just um, can't live without, then you really want to hold off on making that purchase for the time being. You can always put that money in a savings account and come back to that purchase later on. But what we don't want to do is make a big purchase out of our emotional state and then end up with buyer's remorse, or end up realizing down the line that, okay, I wasted that money, because you very likely won't be able to get that back, right? Um, when you're going through trauma, things will feel urgent to you. Your body is processing through so much. Your mind is constantly going. You're thinking about everything that you have been through, everything that you need to do. There's just a lot going on within a person when they're going through a traumatizing time. And it can make even the smallest thing just feel so urgent. Okay, I got to do this. I got to do that. And really, that's not the case. The truth is, you have some very basic needs that have to be met, and then everything else really is not as big of a deal as your trauma will make you feel like it is. So again, you want to just take a deep breath, give yourself time, give yourself permission to wait, to not purchase it, put that money in a savings account, and come back to it later when your head is a little bit more clear. But the things that you do want to focus on are just your basic needs. And that includes, housing costs, whatever your rent is, your utilities, the things that are related to where you live and what you have to do to maintain that living arrangement, right? Um, Food, you got to eat. You can't just stop eating in order to save money. You have to make sure that you eat. I would say focus more on purchasing groceries and cooking at home versus spending a lot of money going out to eat, because that could become an area of overindulgence. That could become a way that we try to fill a void. Oh, I'm going out to eat. I'm going with my girls. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Okay, let's pump our brakes on going out so much and try to get in the habit of eating at home. But food is going to be something that you're going to want to prioritize. Clothing, obviously, you have to have clothes to wear, right? You have to be able to um, get dressed and go out. Again, that doesn't mean that we're going on shopping sprees every paycheck. You don't have to go out and spend a whole lot of money every time you need to buy something to wear. But you do need to allow yourself to be able to take care of your basic need for clothing. And then transportation. Whatever your transportation situation is, you do want to make sure that you have some money dedicated to being able to make sure that that is taken care of so you can get from A to B. Especially if you live in a city like Atlanta, where I live, you got to be able to drive everywhere, or some people Uber, like whatever the situation is that you're in, you want to make sure that you're allocating funds to transportation. And then another thing to consider is your life insurance. If you have life insurance already, now is a good time to check your policy, review your policy, update beneficiaries, all of those things. And if you do not have life insurance, you need to get some. Particularly if you have children, you need to go ahead and get some life insurance in place, because now you are by yourself. You don't have the cushion of a spouse to help shore up costs if something were to happen to you, God forbid, but if something were to happen to you. So you need to have some life insurance in place. And then finally, the big focus during this time needs to be savings. Okay, so if you don't have any debt, all of the money that you're getting above what you need for your basic needs should be going into savings. If you do have debt, of course, you want to make sure that you're current on everything, and you want to make sure that you're paying those minimums every month and taking care of that. But otherwise, you need to be saving that money, because when you do get to a place of healing, you're going to have money in the bank to be able to then focus on whatever your other financial goals are. But right now, that is my encouragement for you. So I want to go to one more Bible verse. And this one is Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 21. And it says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And this verse speaks volumes to me from a financial standpoint. It is obviously directly talking about money and how we deal with money. In this instance, Jesus is speaking. And I was in a church service, this was last year, and my pastor preached on this. And he talked about how Jesus, in this instance, is drawing a direct connection between our heart and our money. Between our heart and our money. And that just resonated so much with me because it was like, yeah, where your treasure is where your heart will be. Like in this instance specifically, they're talking about heavenly things versus earthly things. But in the natural, we can draw a connection between our heart, right? Our emotions, the state of our heart, and what we spend our money on. And so I believe Jesus understands that when you're in a tender place, when you're operating out of a state of trauma and you're not healed emotionally and spiritually, there is a tendency to utilize money in an unhealthy way because our heart is aching for something. We're trying to fill a void. And sometimes financially, money, buying things can be the quickest way to fill that void, but it doesn't last. What lasts is actually going through that healing process and allowing the Lord into those places to help you heal in a way that is healthy and in a way that is going to be lasting. And so it's just extremely important to lean in on your healing during this time, and understanding that the more healed you are, the more healthy you are in your soul, in your spirit, the better off you're going to be to make sound financial decisions and really set yourself up for a stable financial future moving forward. So thank you so much for joining for this episode of the Peace and Power podcast. I hope that you'll stick around for this series. Today was heavy on the emotional stuff. The future episodes are going to be a little bit more practical in terms of how to set up a budget and how to do certain things. But again, we have to walk this out in a way that you're going to be able to maintain what we're talking about, not where you're going to operate out of your emotions and then end up in a negative cycle. So thank you again so much, and look out for part 2 coming soon. Bye.